Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SavvyCast. This is Jamie, and I'm so glad that you're here, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. I'm super excited about today's guest because we're going to be talking about barbecue, but way more than just barbecue. We are going to learn about the art of smoke, fire, and the true art of being a pitmaster. And there's none better qualified to talk to us about that than Pitmaster Pat Martin. He's the founder of Martin's Barbecue Joint and Hugh-Baby's Barbecue and Burger Shop. Martin's Barbecue Joint happens to be Zane's and my favorite barbecue place in Birmingham, and there are Martins all over. And there's a new book that Pat just released. We're going to talk about that as well. And it's Life of Fire: Mastering the Arts of Pit-Cooked Barbecue, the Grill, and the Smokehouse. And Pat is one of the few pitmasters still left. That's a dying art. And he has mastered West Tennessee barbecue, whole hog barbecue. And he both teaches others to do that, and he goes into great length in this book for anyone who might be interested in learning how to master that art. In addition, there are fabulous recipes, many involving smoke and fire, and some not. So I'm thrilled to have Pat today on the SavvyCast to share all things smoke and fire. Pat, welcome to the SavvyCast.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I am so glad you're on. I can't wait to dig into all things smoke and fire and barbecue. But first, I've got to ask you a question I ask every guest. What would you choose as your last meal?
Whole hog pork sandwich with slaw on top, purple hull peas with chow chow and cornbread.
You're my kind of guy. That sounds wonderful. Yeah. Pat, I'm so excited to meet. First of all, people who maybe have seen on my stories, Zane and I eat at Martin's in Birmingham a lot. It's our favorite barbecue.
Oh, thank you.
I grew up and cut my teeth on North Alabama barbecue. So you probably know exactly where I cut my teeth. Bob Gibson's and Woodall's.
And my buddy Chris Lilly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I will tell you, I have not been able to find anything that I've loved since then. And anytime I go home or go through, we always get Bob Gibson's. But when y'all opened in Birmingham, it was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. Now it is different. And that's my first question. Could you sort of tell us the difference in West Tennessee barbecue and North Alabama, or all the different regions? Because barbecue's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. and mainly the sauces, correct? And more so than the technique.
No, there's the technique changes too.
Oh, okay.
I've said this a lot in a lot of interviews that the French have their cheese. We have our barbecue. You drive 50 miles and it changes, especially in the South. Okay. So, like, for example, Memphis style barbecue, which is roughly about 100 miles away from the barbecue that I learned how to cook, which is West Tennessee whole hog. Memphis style barbecue is based in Boston butts and ribs and chicken. You drive 100 miles east to Chester County or around Henderson or Lexington or any of those areas. And traditionally, you were always looking at whole hog with a sweet vinegar based sauce, whereas Memphis had a molasses, ketchup, mustard based mix. It's more of like a brownish hue to a red sauce. And you go down to where you were talking about and you're from, and the thing that made North Alabama so famous was its white sauce with specifically with chicken. It's not just the sauces that change. It very much is the techniques, especially as you get into going into areas where the woods change. Where we're from, hickory is predominant, in West Tennessee and North Alabama and Memphis and those those parts of the Mid-South. When you start getting over into further east you go and the further south you go, the closer you start getting towards an ocean, even though you may be 8 and 9 hours away from ocean, hickory starts to, they get fewer and fewer. And you really pick up, it's just pretty much just oak. So they use oak for their barbecue, you know, in the eastern parts of the country, and then of course the southern parts closer to the oceans. So, you know, it is the sauce that changes. It's the technique that changes. It's the fuel that changes. A lot of it just changes. And that's what makes it so awesome. You know, is I love going out of my area and eating my buddy's barbecue joints, because it's not mine, you know. And
Right,
it's not
right.
down here. So, yeah.
Are you friends with Rodney Scott?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We're all, all of us pitmasters, there's not a lot of us. Like if you really just put it out on paper, and we're all it's a very tight knit, close community.
Well, would you call being a pitmaster, particularly of whole hog barbecue, which Rodney Scott is as well, and you are, is it a dying art, or is it just something very few people will take the time to learn? Because it's a process. I mean, it's a lifelong process of learning, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it is. It's both. It's a dying art. I've actually got an interview I'm doing later about the economics of barbecue and how it's broken. And that is the reason, in my opinion, why it's a dying art, because my dad's generation, he's 75. When they graduated high school, college throughout the nation, college was almost a luxury to have the option to go to. Most people in that generation just went to work.
Right.
And whether they were farming or plumbing, or it doesn't matter, you know, factories. And a lot of the barbecue joints back in the day, probably half of them were only open Thursday through Saturday. They were always closed on Sunday for church. And it was a supplementary income, you know. The ones that were open 5-6 days a week was their main source of income. Usually had a husband or a wife that had a job as well. Well, what happens is now you get to my generation. I just turned 50, and when I graduated college, graduated high school, going to college was kind of, it had flipped. It was like, oh, you're not going to college, you're just going to work. Okay. So it was almost a little bit assumed that you'd go to college. Well, if I'm going to go to college and get a degree in finance, economics, or pre-med, or it doesn't matter. I'm sitting here weighing the salary that I can get from this college education, as opposed to the family barbecue business that I had, that I can only sell a sandwich for $4 a sandwich, but I'm going to work somewhere between 15 and 24 hours cooking a whole shoulder or hog or Boston butt or whatever. It doesn't take you too long to figure out that this is a lot less work with more opportunity for larger pay than working my tail off over here. So a lot of the old barbecue joints died off. Yeah. And where you really see them now is in, you know, metropolitan areas like Nashville, because we can afford to charge.
Well, and when you say afford to charge, like we eat at Rodney Scott's as well. I don't consider it at all overpriced, but then again, I cook, I know the prices of meat and food. Are you saying some people consider it high?
When you go into rural areas, they don't want their price to change. And when you change it, and it's not just barbecue spots, it's, you know, it's the local catfish house or whatever, but it is specific. Barbecue gets the brunt of it. You know, if I'm charging $4.50 for a sandwich, I go to $5. There is a large amount of your guest base that is going to say, almost accuse you of trying to get away with something. It's cultural pricing, really, you know. And, you know, it's just a lot of the restaurant owners, especially pitmasters who run barbecue restaurants, feel like they're trapped and handcuffed, that they're literally too scared to raise their prices because they're afraid that, you know, Bobby Joe is going to go down the road to the next guy who stayed at $4.50.
Right.
So it's that's got to get broken before you start seeing barbecue come back nationwide, really in the South. You know, when I'm sitting here in Nashville and I'm charging $6.50 for a sandwich, when I go to $7, not like it used to be, but there'll still be, I'll get some emails say you've gotten too big for your britches, and I can't believe you charge this much. I'm done here. Like it's crazy.
Well, this is just my thought on that. I would just ignore those people. I mean, they have their right, but serve the people who love and appreciate you, because those people are going to continue to come and they're going to understand. That's my take. But I know you deal with,
Well,
you know,
you appreciate the take, but until you're on this side of the fence and you overthink everything and the economic,
yeah,
when your entire livelihood's based on, and people go to church or go, down to the Moose Lodge or whatever and start running their mouth about how you're not any good anymore because you're too expensive. It's not worth paying that. That's a real live living thing. So
wow.
you really think it through before you do it.
Wow. Well, that's unfortunate. But on a lighter note, you have a huge following. You're very successful. When I put something on my story one night when we were eating there, I had so many direct messages from people, and a lot of them were from Nashville, and a lot of them were from Nashville. They said, favorite place, love it, love it, love it. Tell us where all you're located, how many stores you have.
I've got 6 in Nashville. I've got 1 in Louisville, 1 in Birmingham, and 1 in Charleston.
Is that it, or do you have more in the works?
I've got another one planned here in town in Nashville. I'm going to do. I'm not growing just for the sake of growing. It's really you can't franchise barbecue and be proud of it. So I don't franchise. I only do a partnership with somebody who's worked with me for a long time, who I trust.
Yeah.
Who's going to do things the right way. I mean, we don't have any freezers or microwaves in our restaurants. We get up and make everything from scratch every day. We cook our meat fresh every day, and we literally intentionally not try to run out to cause problems for our guests, but our intention is to not have any meat left over or have to reheat the next day. Right. So, we'll run out of brisket and whole hog sometimes at 6:30 at night, and that's just the way it is. That's the way real barbecue joints are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that leads me to that. One of my favorite things at your, at the Martin's that I go to is the brisket. And the only other brisket that I have loved that's not my own is yours and Bucky's. And I don't know but both of y'all's are fall apart, very tender. I find a lot, and is this your experience, that a lot of barbecue places, their brisket is tough and it's just, the slices are too thick? Yours is just buttery soft. It just falls apart.
Thank you. It's brisket is, whole hog is the most complicated thing to cook in barbecue, because there's just you're cooking a body and different parts of that body. The hams, as opposed to shoulders, have different densities and different amounts of collagen, muscle fiber, fat, all that. Brisket is a very tricky thing to cook. It's besides whole hog, it's the most complicated thing in all of barbecue to cook. You have 2 muscles that sit on top of each other like this, and then this middle part right here is fat, and the top muscle has tons of collagen in it. The bottom muscle does not. We call the top one the point, we call the bottom one the flat, and the flat is very lean. The flat is what you're trying to not overcook. You've got a lot of leeway on this top muscle, and it's always the most buttery of the 2. So there's a lot of, you and I could sit here and do an all-day podcast with me walking you through the little bitty nuances of how to cook brisket the right way. It's just hard. It really is.
Yeah. Well, it's divine. It's wonderful. And you're gracious. It's on top of the corn. I get it all the time. The Redneck Taco.
Yeah.
Wow. Where did you come up with that? That it is describe it. Is that a hoe cake or?
Yeah, it's a hoe cake.
A hoe cake.
Yeah. And they used to take it, sharecroppers used to take in the field with them just some, basically made hot water cornbread in a sense. They just would cook these little cornbread cakes on the back of their hoe. They build a little fire and they take some cornmeal out there with them and some lard and whatever else and make it right there for lunch. Nashville has no real fingerprint whatsoever, ironically, in the barbecue world, except the fact that in Nashville, how it was served was usually always served, pulled pork was always served on a hoe cake. And I'm a staunch advocate of slaw being on a barbecue sandwich. I think that is the way God meant for it to be. And I think that the younger generation or people that aren't from the South are like, ooh, slaw, I don't want slaw. You know, it's borderline offensive. Like, this is the way you're supposed to eat it. And this is what made it famous. This is one of the pieces of the puzzle that made barbecue sandwiches what they are.
Yeah.
So when I first opened, I had one line cook. It was just me and another guy. I had 12 tables, and Bo Collier's his name. He was from Nashville. And he said, you can't open up a barbecue joint in Nashville and not have a hoe cake, you know, with pulled pork on this hoe cake. And so I said, all right, but I'm going to put slaw on top of it. I don't care. And so I let him come up with the name of it, and he called it a Redneck Taco. You can't eat it like a taco. It's really more of an open barbecue sandwich.
Yeah.
It's definitely a fork and knife thing, but when you do eat it, you have to get all the components. I see a lot of people still trying to figure out how to tell my guests to not eat just the top and then pick around the cornbread.
And then pick around it. Yeah.
Go through the whole, you got to get slaw, pork, and the
all in one bite.
All in one bite.
That's right. It is so good. And then everything's good. The wings. In fact, for the 4th, I've got to place an order to get some of my meat from y'all. I hope I'm not too late, but your catering's, I'm not. Okay. Your catering is fabulous. And there's always a line. I mean, I'm just so glad that y'all are here, but can you just maybe tell us just in a gist this may be a dumb question, but it's one that's in my brain. Is every barbecue place whole hog? It's not, is it? Some barbecue places just buy cuts of meat and barbecue those, whereas
no. There's only 20 odd something restaurants in America still serving whole hog. Very, 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 very few barbecue restaurants are whole hog. And I have 9 of them. Over 20. Rodney's got 3 or 4 of them, you know, so maybe there's up to 30 now, but there's not hardly anybody cooking whole hog anymore.
Why is that?
Because the economics I just told you about, you know, it's broken, you know, like you can't charge, if I'm gonna work 24 hours to cook a whole hog and all I can do is charge you $4, $4.50, even $7 for a sandwich, but you'll have no problem going down here and having, you know, name your restaurant and pay them $12 to cook you a 6-ounce cheeseburger it takes 8 minutes to get to your table.
Yeah.
That's why nobody does it.
Yeah.
So most people cook Boston butts. A few people cook shoulders, but most people are cooking Boston butts, chickens, and baby back ribs. They can cook those faster. A lot of barbecue, I think the quality of barbecue in general has declined throughout the South because back to the economics of barbecue, a lot of people have gone to cooking once or twice a week and then reheating on a daily basis so they don't have any waste.
Yeah.
And when you reheat barbecue, it's just never the same.
Yeah.
It just never is.
Yeah.
So is it good? A lot of places, yeah, a lot of people love it. But a lot of people, especially younger folks that are say 40 and below, have gotten, so that's all they've known their whole life. So they don't even, a lot of people have never even eaten at a barbecue joint that cooks fresh barbecue every day and tries to run out. So they don't know what they don't know, you know, and I think coinciding with that, the popularity of different sauces and competition barbecue, a lot of people now think that barbecue is about the sauce. That is so wrong. It's not even funny. The sauce should always only complement what the meat.
Good barbecue.
It's never side by side, shoulder to shoulder. It's just not. Anybody says that it is, they're wrong. So
it's like putting lipstick on a pig. If it's not good barbecue, it's not gonna, the sauce doesn't matter, correct?
Right. So sauces have become more popular now because that's what people's taste, that's what they're looking for, is the sauce, you know, instead of the quality.
You offer, and I think it's excellent, a white sauce, your own version of a white sauce, and you bottle it and sell it. And is that business good? You're online, or is that just in store? No, it's online
good.
as well.
It's not a major part of my revenue stream. It's just it's there really. I wouldn't say as a service to the guests. It's somewhere in between. I've thought about trying to get it in stores from here to there, but you know, I'm kind of in my hole and just do what I do, you know.
Yeah.
The restaurant business.
What is your most popular menu item?
Pulled pork, whole hog sandwich with slaw, or the redneck taco with slaw, and then brisket, then wings, and then probably spare ribs.
Okay. What are your most popular sides?
Baked beans, slaw, potato salad,
Mm-hmm.
probably in that order.
Mm-hmm. And is your catering, or to pick up to go catering, how does it compare to your dine-in?
I don't know what you mean. You mean sales wise?
Sales wise, yeah.
It's about equivalent to another store. So we
Whoa,
do we
wow.
do pretty good in catering. It's taken us 10 years to get there. Had
Yeah.
a girl that built that up over the time. She's now gone on to open up her own place, but she built it up to a really, really, really good business.
Uh-huh. How did the shutdown affect you?
It was terrible.
Mhm,
We almost went under. I mean,
mhm.
that's a whole nother podcast,
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
Uh, I've shut I had 2 restaurants in Louisville. COVID got one of them, and my downtown Martin's restaurant was shut down for 9 months. I had to let go 650 employees in one
Mm,
day. It's terrible. Hope we never have to go through it again.
yeah. Yeah. But when things reopened here, y'all got back in the saddle pretty quickly, didn't you, with the drive up?
Yeah, I altered
You
the
and
model where we could have curbside and all
yeah.
that. It was Birmingham was, Birmingham basically never even acted like COVID happened.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
We got over it really quickly, didn't we?
like instantaneously. And then
Yeah.
Nashville was far more stringent. And I agree with how stringent it was. It's far more stringent on how they went about opening back up. So, it was a lot of changes,
Yeah.
we had to adjust to.
Yeah. Well, I just want to share just a bit about Life of Fire, your book, for anyone who might want to get it. Now, first of all, I will put all of this in the show notes and I'll link to the book, but just tell us, in addition to Amazon, I'm sure, where else can these books be purchased?
They are at bookstores nationwide,
Okay.
Barnes and Noble and all that. They're on Target, Walmart. I
Oh,
think
okay.
Sam's Club. So they're everywhere. You can go online and get it.
Okay. Well, I will link to it, everyone, but the cover is absolutely making my mouth water. So that's the crown jewel right there. Piled high pork sandwich with the slaw and the bun.
That's right.
But I just want to sort of touch upon how detailed and in depth you get into the art of building the pit and mastering all the techniques. So anyone who might want to learn, this is definitely a user's manual.
Yeah, I built it's most 90% of cookbooks are recipe books, and then the other
Yep.
10 are probably procedural books. Mine is a procedural book.
Right.
I wanted to mentor somebody through my words. I hope that people use this book time and again, not just one time and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to leave no stone unturned. I mean, the quote unquote recipe for whole hog, and that is 40 pages long, just for
Mhm.
one, because it's just very arduous. There's nothing in that book that's not arduous. There's nothing in
Right.
there that's dumbed down to a Weber grill or anything like that. If you really
Mhm.
want to learn how to cook barbecue the old way, then pit barbecue is where you have to get into. And that book is completely about pit barbecue. There's no beef in that book, so there's no brisket in it. There's no smokers in it. Everything in there is you configure yourself or go down and have a buddy of yours that's a welder. We talk extensively about open pit barbecue, which is basically the oldest form of cooking barbecue.
Mhm.
Talk about obviously block pit, traditional closed pit barbecue, cooking hog in the ground, grilling vegetables that we normally fry,
Mhm.
okra, squash, all that's on the
Mhm.
front end of the book. And then we get into the smokehouse at the end, hanging bellies and country hams and all that. And then my mom's got the last chapter. It's kind of a book within a book on our family desserts.
I love that chapter, and she has at my age shows, because I don't think my children would know what Shoney's was, but the Shoney's strawberry pie. I grew up going there for breakfast.
Yeah.
So she's got that recipe, and then your fudge pie, which I guess is what some people would call chocolate chess.
Yeah, I don't know about, we call it fudge pie in Mississippi, so it's
Yeah, I think that's a regional thing too, but yeah, so there are plenty of recipes for people who want good recipes, but the heart of this book is really teaching and explaining whole hog.
yeah, it's a course in pit barbecue.
Do
Yeah.
you think someone who is really, really motivated could just take what's in here and do it? Or do you think they'd have to have somebody come alongside? Because
No, they
it's
can do it.
involved.
They can do it. They may not excel at it the first time, but it's they can absolutely do it. That was my intent. I didn't want to put a book out unless I could get them to a point where they could do it.
Right.
Get there. They just have to really pay attention to all the little steps along the way. But you can't, there's no book and there's no YouTube, there's no course, there's no weekend class you can go to teach feel. And you're to really cook barbecue at a really exceptional level, you just have to get out and start cooking barbecue. You know, it's like skiing. Like I can tell you in a page on how to ski, and you can go do it and enjoy your day. You probably get ticked off the first few hours and say some words that you weren't raised to say. But after a while, if you really want to get exceptional skiing, there's only one way to do it, and that's just to get up and go down and get on the lift and ski again and again. So
yeah,
same thing with barbecue.
Is anyone else in your family into this?
My kids are kind of getting into it. My son just went with me this past week and did a food and wine event with me out in Wyoming. And we cooked some barbecue out there. The older folks in my family, my uncles and all that, are not. They enjoy it, but they don't cook it. I didn't come up in a family that had a pitmaster in it or anything like that. I was just drawn to cooking over fire, and barbecue entered my life.
Do y'all eat your barbecue? Like, you take it home? How many nights a week do you eat it?
I don't. When you're around your own stuff every day, whether it's barbecue or even fried chicken, it doesn't matter what restaurant, you just don't. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody that just ate it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I enjoy eating other people's stuff. I eat my stuff probably once a month. I'll have a sandwich, maybe a couple ribs or a brisket sandwich, but I'll always have probably a whole hog sandwich at least once a month. We get my wife and kids eat our food maybe once every 2 weeks, once a week. Yeah.
That's interesting.
We enjoy it. We're just around it so much. It's just not, we don't crave it.
Yeah. Well, Pat, I'm very grateful that you came on and that you shared, and I'm going to encourage everyone to check this book out.
Please do.
And what is the best way to stay in touch with what's going on at Martin's? Follow Martin's on Instagram. You can sign up.
I've got two I've got my personal Instagram, which is at Pitmaster Pat. And then I've got Martin's Barbecue, which is at Martin's BBQ.
Okay. And that will always give alerts for, like, hey, this holiday menu, this is what we're going to be offering. This is the deadline. I almost missed the deadline. I got a turkey and some sides for Thanksgiving, and somehow I missed all my, the alerts. And
if you want to make sure you don't miss an alert, you got to go online on our website, martinsbbqjoint.com, and sign up for the email, and you get an email. Well, I think we send out 2 or 3 or 4 over the course of a couple months leading up to a holiday,
Right. And
we announced it on Instagram and all that, but really, if you want the alerts, you got to sign up to the email list.
Right. And I am definitely signed up for that. Well, Pat, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for what you do and what you provide to those of us who love barbecue. I'm very, very glad that I live near Martin's. So thank you.
I appreciate you having me on.
You're so welcome. And you have a fabulous rest of your day.